Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I am excited to catch up with you guys on this beautiful Friday in March. It is snowing unexpectedly today and I'm so happy. I'm not quite ready for warmer weather, so every last snowstorm that we get, I get really happy, and it's a chance to wrap up in hand knits. So, if you are new here, we chat about yarn and knitting and all the fun patterns that excite us and lots of other stuff at the end. If you are returning, thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoy this next hour of chit chat. I have to share this with you really quick because I don't know if I can wear this for the entire hour for a few reasons. Let me first remind you of what this is. This is a pattern by the very talented Sari Nordlund. It's the Moonflower color. I knit mine up in hedgehog fibers in the Tweedy base in the original colorway. I finished it last Friday and was thrilled to block it out. I enjoyed knitting this pattern very, very much. I love cables. If you've been watching my channel for the last few weeks, you know I really enjoyed this. I was craving some cables, and I think one of the challenging things with larger pieces of either really intricate color work or cables or lace is that they can just take a really long time and it's sort of a marathon. I was excited because this was a smaller piece with beautiful cables that I thought would be really fun to make, and I was completely correct. I enjoyed every minute of making this pattern. I love the various, I'm going to come a little closer so you can see. I love the various cables. It never got boring, and because it's such a small piece, it was just fun the whole time. I feel like hats also fall into that category, but I had never ever considered a collar like this, and I just was really drawn to it. So I loved it. I think it turned out beautifully. This is the first day I put it on. It's been quite warm. Luckily today is cold, but I had never put it on. And I have to say, you know, I'm extremely honest with you guys. I feel like someone is about to pop me into a high chair and spoon creamed potatoes or something into my mouth. Like, I feel like I'm wearing a bib. So I was worried that I would feel that way, and I definitely feel that way. I don't think if I went out, like tonight I'm going to meet my friend for drinks for happy hour. If I wore this, I would not sit at the table with this on without a jacket because I would feel like I put on a bib to go to a restaurant. It's just maybe if I wore it over a hand knit, so it kind of disguised. I don't know, but Sari Nordlund wore it much better than I'm wearing it. I feel silly. I mean, I feel comical sitting here in this. One thing I will say is that we walk a ton because we have dogs, and it's like we're like the U.S. Postal Service, rain, shine, snow, hail, whatever. So since we live in Boulder, Colorado, I feel like this would be a great thing to wear under my jacket when it's very cold outside. So I do feel like I would get use out of it in that way. I will never make a sweater with a turtleneck. I feel like I'm going to rip my head off because it's so claustrophobic to me. So that's another good lesson, because sometimes I see some higher necklines that look so cozy and cute, and I'm almost tempted, but this has taught me that I cannot. So, you know, I don't regret making it. I will use it. I maybe will try to style it with other knits instead of, sweatshirts. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. Every piece we make is not going to be a 10 out of 10. If I loved the process, I'm really happy. Also, I got to use yarn that was just in my stash and practice the skill of cabling, which to me is a huge thing because I love cabling and it does require some patience to build your confidence within a pattern, even if you're comfortable cabling, and to build the kind of hand stamina. I think it's one of those types of knitting that can really cause you to get a little soreness in your hands because it is a lot of, moving stitches around. And I think I said this last week, it just never fails to amaze me how something as simple as switching the order of stitches can result in something so intricate and so beautiful. One thing I will say is I have been waiting. Sorry, Nordlund, sorry. Coffee maker is rinsing itself. It's a noisy household sometimes. There's dogs snoring, dogs barking. What are you going to do? This distracts me is, I think, the bigger problem. Sari Nordlund has been previewing a pattern for months now that I've been super excited to see. And today she finally posted like a full picture of her progress on this piece. It is the Book Club Cardigan. Oh my gosh. Every tiny picture she had shown, I was just completely enticed. And I was worried that it wasn't going to end up being something that I liked. Oh my gosh, I am obsessed with this cardigan. This is truly my dream cardigan. I love the idea of an oversized, cozy, fully cabled cardigan. I love the pockets. I love the name. If you've watched me before, reading is as dear to me as knitting. Those are like the two loves of my activity life. So I just love this. Now, I'm terrified to say I'm going to make it at some point because it looks like not only a marathon, it looks like a double marathon because that is a lot of cabling, y'all. I mean, a lot. It is fully cabled, sleeves, back, front, all of it. So we shall see. I would have to really dive deep into the pattern because I really enjoyed this because it wasn't repetitive. It changed up enough to not be like just boring, same cable, same cable, same cable. Like the way this is twisted here, like it's double, all that was just so much fun to make. So if I feel like that one would be interesting enough to actually keep my attention for the double marathon, maybe I will do it. We shall see. But I couldn't resist sharing because I was lying in bed this morning doing what you should never do, which is open Instagram. But when I saw this picture, I got so excited and I wanted to share it with you. So that is the Moonflower collar. If you really like this pattern, she does have, I believe, a Moonflower pullover and a couple of other, maybe even a hat, which I would totally make. I actually am drawn to making that, even though I don't need another project. But if you like the way this looks and you don't like the wearing a bib as a grown-up, maybe you go for the full sweater. I really do think this is a pattern that could be fun. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do something I never do, which is stop, go remove this, and then come back. Okay? The reason why I cannot remove this on camera is because I'm a her. A couple weeks ago, you guys were all so sweet and kind about how good my hair looked curly, and I got super, oh my God, I do look kind of cute. And this is the other side of curly hair. This is the curly hair wearing you. You're not wearing the curly hair. It's just like a poofy, hot mess. So if I pulled this color off now, I would look like a crazy poodle. So I'm going to go and then try to redeem my hair and then come back. Because if I sit here with this collar around my neck right now, I'm already like literally covered in sweat. TMI, but I am. So BRB, 1 second, please. Okay, you guys, I am back. I feel much better and cooled off. So let's keep going. As I said last week, I am super excited about Helen Stewart's Mystery Knit Along that starts in 2 weeks. It starts on March 21st, I think, and I just went on and on last week because I was just so excited about it, and I still am. But the harder part of that for me was going to be getting really focused and clearing some things off my needles. Having that collar done and dusted was a huge start, but there's still 2 big shawls and 2 cardigans, which are all very big projects. And I was really keen on getting at least one of them done, if not 2. And I am proud to say I've made good progress this week. First thing that I wanted to really make progress on was my half and half triangles wrap by Purl SoHo. I had started this as a long-term project with no intention of it being something that I finished quickly. And I haven't. I started it last summer sometime. But you guys, I am so close to finishing. I'm sorry, it's like a wrinkled mess because it's just shoved in a project bag. But look how beautiful. I tell you what, I am a maximalist when it comes to, like, in my knits, I love Stephen West. I love, even the cables. It's all a lot. But there's something really beautiful about something so simple and clean. And I'm really excited to gift this to my daughter, who I just think it's classic enough for her to love forever. And she picked the colors, and I'm really excited about it being done. I love it, but I'm ready for it to be done. I think the reason I I'm enjoying it when I knit it, but I'm ready for it to be done. My rule for myself with this project is that I was never going to think about finishing it. I was just going to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And it's one of the things I love about knitting is the discipline of showing up and continuing even when something isn't all exciting and sparkly. I love that calm that it brings me just to do the garter stitch back and forth. I love it. So when I decided I needed to really get some of the things off my needles, I started pushing myself to pick it up when I normally would have picked up something different. And so I think breaking that rule has created that sense of like, oh, I just want this done. However, I made it through a large portion of it, just pure enjoyment. And now it's okay if I have to, put a little elbow grease in, quite literally, and get it done. It's so deceiving on this project. You get towards the end and look how much I have finished, okay? So what you'd have to do is go across, and every single row you have to wrap and turn, or German short row, or whatever the short row method. That's how you join the 2 triangles. And it looks like there are so few stitches left. But the thing is, every one of these stitches, you have to go all the way, wrap and turn, all the way back, all the way again, next stitch, all the way back. So it looks like I'm almost done. And comparatively, I am almost done, but this is still going to take some time. I've been working on it every single day. It's great that it is mindless, but the bigger it is, the bigger it gets, the more cumbersome I think it kind of is to take it out into the world. But nonetheless, we carry on, and it's just going to be really pretty when it's done. I love the way you can fold it in lots of different ways. It can be more like a blanket. We do a lot of road trip travel, and I think this would be just a fantastic travel shawl blanket, cozy thing for my little one. She picked Pink Pop, and this is, don't remember. I really don't remember what this is. Pale blue? Robin's egg blue? Nobody knows. It's a mystery. I love linen quill. I've talked about it ad nauseum, so I'm not going to talk about it again. But maybe I can finish it by next week. Who knows? Who knows? One thing I did want to say about this was I had made my son a blanket years ago out of linen quill and Purl SoHo's line weight yarn, which is a single. And I remember when I blocked it, the water when I came back, because it's lots of blues and purples and oranges and navies and stuff, the water was like dark purple. I don't think it actually absorbed, like the white parts didn't, because it's like this, it's the library blanket by Purl SoHo. So it's like these long stripes and vertical and horizontal orientation. I don't think the white actually absorbed any of that color because there are white chunks, but I am not running that risk with this. And because the color is so delineated, just one half and one half, I'm going to wet block it separately. Like I always wet block in my tub. So I'm gonna try to wet block most of the pink and like leave the blue part outside and then switch it with clean water. And then at that edge where it they both meet, I'm going to use my steamer. Sorry, I dropped the ball. And make sure it's all nice and even, because I really think it would be heartbreaking after this much knitting to see those colors, the pink bleed into that gorgeous ice blue. Like the beauty of this is that crisp contrast, and it would be quite uncrisp to have like a tie-dye situation happening. And as much as I love tie-dye, this is not the place for it. So I know some of you are doing the half and half, and if you are doing the half and half triangles wrap, I hope you are just taking your time. Don't rush through it because it is an enjoyable knit. I have to say, I don't know that I would be one of those people that made like 10. I always say I love Stress Knits Yarn, the podcast by Stacey L. Stone, I think that's her name. And she's made half and half after half and half. And I could never, like ever, just churn those out. I think I would just go bananas if I did, because it's not interesting enough for me. Okay. Well, the other thing that surprised me this week, I think it was on Sunday, all I had been working on was the half and half. So I think I was just kind of thinking about my other projects and thinking about like, well, maybe I can't just work on this until it's done, because I still, even though I'm really trying to finish what I've got on the needles, you still want it to be fun and joyful and not just ruin your love for the project. So I had started the Heirloom Quilt Cardigan by Katryn Seeburger last fall, maybe late last fall, I think. That is a beautiful pattern where you just make these very classic quilts inspired blocks, and then you piece them together and make a gorgeous oversized cardigan. And of course, after all of the piecing, after all the square making, the piecing, then you do the sleeves, the collar, and the hem. Speaking of marathon, this is definitely in that category of marathon. And I suppose if I could live through this marathon, I could maybe do that book club cardigan. But again, sorry, stream of consciousness. But my dear, dear friend Jessica, who you guys hear about like every week, she's so above and beyond, y'all. She is making this as well. We were going to make it together. She's also using Rowan Felted Tweed, which we both loved for this project. She finished all her blocks, and then she had COVID, I believe, and she just seamed them all together. And I had tried to seam mine together, and it was horrible. I think it was compounded in horror because it was when I had pneumonia, and then right when I was getting back to being healthy, I was so tired of being feeling like I wasn't useful, and my husband was doing so much that the dog's paws were really muddy. And, I'd been in bed for like a week and a half by that point. Well, I went to clean their paws, and all that like bending over and stuff after being just bedridden, I pulled a muscle in my back. And then I started trying to piece the things together, and it just made my back hurt so much that I was just beside myself. I was like, I ripped it out, and then I said, I do not care if these blocks become a cardigan this year. I'm not doing it. Well, Jessica insisted on piecing them together for me. Now, I just truly don't think I've ever had a friend that would mattress stitch 36 blocks or whatever it was together. It's just so insane to me how she's just so generous of spirit and so giving and so kind. And I just was so grateful. I finally capitulated because she was just like, nope, just give it to me. Let me get it done. And then you can move on. And she did. And I will show you how beautiful. Again, this has been squished up in a bag because I'll tell you why it's been squished up in a bag, despite the fact that I've been working on it so much. It's going to be kind of hard for me to show, but I'll show you this back panel. It's all wrinkly, but you can see how beautifully this turned out. I love how the colors turned out. I love how the tweed shows up even from a distance. It just makes it look so vintage, which is exactly the look I was going for. This color palette just, it makes me so incredibly happy. I am in love with it. And if you were here, you would pick this up and be shocked at how light and airy it is despite being so much fabric. Like for instance, let me show you here real quick. All those floats create a lot more yarn on each block. So it could have been easily with another yarn far too dense to be comfortable. But this yarn, it was like this pattern was made with this yarn in mind. It just, I cannot recommend it enough. I feel like if you are going to make this and you haven't already started, I highly recommend this yarn. I cannot remember all the colors I used, but if you go to Wool & Company's website, you will see all of these. I know this was sulfur, this is French mustard, barn red. I think that's probably all I remember. I have started, well, I finished the first sleeve, which I made, I think this is called cinnamon, I'm not sure. But because this is so oversized, the sleeves start really low, so I just plowed through this. I wanted it to be oversized. I did not want the balloon sleeve that she does in her sample. I wanted just a really straight, simple sleeve. I did a 1x1 rib at the bottom. I have not bound off yet because I'm really a fan of wet blocking first to see that it lands at the right place. And then if I need to change anything, it's still connected to this ball of yarn. So it'll be a lot easier to fix and finish after I wet block it. I dread in all my knitting picking up stitches, but you know what? The more I just don't think about it and dive into it, it's so not a big deal. I'm not going to even complain about having to pick 300 stitches around the collar and 300 around the hem. I'm not even going to complain about it. I am on the second sleeve, which I'm making in a different color because her sample was done like this, and I thought it was so cute and just gave that vintage piece together with leftovers feeling, and I really love it. And because I used so many colors in the body, I wanted to use 2 neutrals for the sleeves, and I'm really glad I did. I always find the second sleeve to just be a breeze because you're just following the decreases of the first one. If you are a new knitter, just make sure you always mark your decreases with opening, what the heck am I trying to say? One of these clippy stitch markers so that you can easily follow along. The other mental note to make, if you are a newish knitter, when you're making your second sleeve, well, when you did your first sleeve, make sure you notate what your stitch count was. So mine was 63. I just sent myself a text so I wouldn't forget, because I always think I'm gonna remember. And somehow I never hit the exact stitch mark that the pattern suggests, and I don't think it matters at all. Some people like to pick up extra to help prevent holes in the underarms. I actually don't think it really helps prevent. It does to some extent, but you still just leave a really long tail so that you can kind of sew closed any holes that you see at the end, because it's impossible when you're knitting to have a completely seamless underarm without doing a little surgery at the end. So I know lately I've seen a couple people here in the comments saying that they are newish knitters. So I'm just telling you the things. I am by no means an expert knitter, oh please. But these are things that I've learned through trial and error that I think can be helpful just to kind of realize without having to go through the trial and error. Speaking of helpful tips, I remember so long ago, I don't remember what it was. Oh, I do remember what it was. It was when I was knitting the Twists and Turns shawl by Stephen West, the mystery knit along from a few years ago. It was extraordinarily long, and it was a modular knit. So you would have this giant knit, but you'd be only working on one side back and forth. And every time I would turn my work, it would just become a tangled mess. And somebody suggested in my comment section that I put the entire shawl into a project bag and just keep the part you're working on exposed. It really reminded me of like when you have surgery and they isolate the part of the body that they're working on and everything else is like covered up. It's like that. And that's why I have this entire thing jammed in a project bag, because I left this first sleeve attached when I didn't have it isolated in a project bag. When I picked it up, it was so tangled because I've got it on these barber cords and it was such a tangled mess. I remembered that tip and it has been a lifesaver. So I put the whole thing in the project bag and then I just pull out the sleeve I'm working on, and then moving it in a circle constantly because I'm using the shorties for the sleeves just is so much easier and there's no tangled mess. So that is my helpful tip that I'm passing on. I wish I could shout out who told me that, but I have no idea. If you told me that, please tell me, because I'm so forever grateful for that tip. I have been loving working on this so much. Again, I'm so grateful to Jessica for doing the horrible piecing part together. She said she loved it. Okay, I don't understand that, but I'm going to believe her so that I don't feel guilty about it. But after that was done for me, the sleeves and everything else is just a breeze. My goal, which I truly don't know if is possible, is to finish this before March 21st. First of all, I would just love to have a big piece off the needles. Second of all, I want to wear this, you guys. I'm obsessed with the way it looks and the way it feels. The great thing with cardigans like this is you can try them on, and I love this cardigan. I love the way it looks. I love the way it wears. It's not too heavy. It's not itchy. It's going to be a great layering piece. So I just want to wear it, especially because it is March and winter's almost over, and I want to wear it before it's too late. Although I do think this is an all seasons cardigan because it's so light. I think I can knock out this sleeve, and then it's the hem, and then it's the collar. So I think I can do it. Especially if I focus more on this than the half and half. I think I do have to pick which one I want to finish, and I would pick this because I'm a selfish person. Just kidding. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. I do think because there is no short row shaping in the back, to make sure you make an oversized one, because I think it could, depending on your body shape, it could be problematic. I think Jessica was kind of saying some part of hers was kind of bubbling or sticking out weird. I feel like mine is it feels like it's going to look good, but we shall see. I am not someone skilled enough to just add short rows somewhere where there are not. Maybe you are, and in that case, that's wonderful. I'm not going to be doing that. So this bad boy is high on my priority list. You will be seeing it again next week with hopefully a ton of progress. Okay, what's next? Now that I have, what did I do with all that? Oh, there, it's over here. I was like, I know I had a ton of yarn to show you because my yarn for the mystery knit along came and I was so excited. Again, this is Helen Stewart's mystery knit along. It is a lace shawl that is called I should have reminded myself what this shawl is actually called. The MKAL is actually called 24 Birds. Oops, I should have refreshed my memory. I'll look it up. But I think it is 24 Birds, and it is based on William Morris, the textile artist and writer from the 1800s. I'm trying to pull this up on Ravelry real quick because I really cannot recall. I can't multitask. 24 Birds MKAL, yes. Anyway, it uses 4 colors, and of course, one should always first stash dive, but I do not have 4 skeins of fingering weight yarn to even pick from. I have like 1. I have lots of scraps, but I do not have just full skeins. So, sorry, they're way over here because I have a lot of stuff. I'm so excited to show you. I decided to work with Farmer's Daughter Fiber in their Foxy Lady base because I love singles, and I think singles are great for shawls. I talked about this last week, so I won't go into it. But I wanted to try this base before I even saw it in person because it is, I think, 30% silk. Let me just take this out. It is, let's see. It is 428 yards per 100 grams. So that is enormous. That is a lot of yardage. And it is 30% silk and 70% superwash merino. So there's the little tag. I'm going to show you my colors. I am so excited to share them with you. This is the colorway Olive Oyl. I love this silvery sage color. And I don't know if the camera is capturing the sheen and the luster that this yarn has because of the silk content. But oh my gosh, it is stunning. And as I said to you guys last week, my friend Sharon and I had lunch, and she just happened to, I really believe the yarn gods were sending me a message. And I'm not even saying that jokingly. I am stone cold serious because I had been so keen on this yarn and I was so reluctant to purchase it because I'd never seen it in person. And then I have lunch with Sharon and she brings me this cowl that she just finished and she was obsessed with. And guess what it was? It was knit up in the space. It was kismet, y'all, kismet. Olive Oyl, Oyl. This is Gary Cooper. You guys know this colorway is like my total jam. Remember I made that sleeveless hoodie last year? I should have worn that today. Darn it. Anyway, I think it was like basically this exact color from Noro. It's like this mossy green with just a hair of deeper kind of brown in it. It's so pretty. I had to look up who is Gary Cooper, and I guess he was an actor from years ago. I don't know. I just was curious. See how pretty those two look together? And then I got Meet Me in Atlantic City, which looks so different wound up. I'll put a picture up here of what it looked like in the skein. I always think it's just so fascinating to see how different something looks wound up and then even more different knit up. Honestly, I'm really tempted to swatch all my colors together, especially this one, because I want to see what it looks like knit up. It is so beautiful. I think it was really hard to decide the colors to go with this. I knew I wanted to go solid because this is so variegated and I didn't want all of them to be variegated. But I love how both of these are obviously in this, but this also has my favorite kind of coppery salmon in large parts. So pretty. And then finally, I'm obsessed with this color, you guys. It's called Mr. Pocket. I know Andrea Maurer used this in her big cozy cardigan. I think she used the alpaca, the Sari alpaca base. I wish you could see this in person. It is so tonal, and I love tonal solids because they just have so much interesting dimension and reflection in the light. And this just specifically has such cool copper tones in with this very unique, cool colored brownish gray. Oh, it's just so good. I would totally make a full sweater out of this colorway. Again, a screen just cannot do this justice. Maybe you can kind of tell a little bit because I think the light is hitting it really nicely. But on screen, like when you're on their website, sorry, my eyelash is itchy. That's so weird. It just doesn't look the way it looks here. It's just gorgeous. Honestly, this was the surprise sleeper hit for me. Out of all of these, this one blew me away the most. But I really do think it's because of that silk content. So if you picked this colorway in a different base, I don't think it would have that same sheen. So let me just try to hold this all up so you can see. I hope the light is okay. It's very snowy and the light is very dim today, so it's a little hard to capture with good light. But this is my color palette. I am thrilled with my choices because the theme is 24 birds and I wanted really nature-inspired colors that were more muted. And like this to me, it just screams, you know, I don't know, avian. It's very avian inspired. It's just, I can see a bird with feathers in these tones. And so I'm very excited that not only do these colors make my heart sing, but it also taps into the theme. And I just cannot wait. Like I'm starting to get really excited again because I haven't been thinking about this MKAL because I've been so squarely focused on what I'm trying to finish. And once I committed to my colorways, I wasn't, just obsessively looking at colors again. I am so excited to see this base unfold in this gorgeous lace. I think when you use a single, especially, it just has a cleanness that really highlights lace. And I'm just really excited. So happy with the way the colors turned out. Always easier to pick colors in person, but that's just sometimes not an option. Like, look how good those two look together. Even like a 2-color colorwork sweater, these two would be really, really pretty. Olive Oyl, Mr. Pocket. I love all the names. I love all the names. So yay for the MKAL. If you're joining in, I cannot wait. If you are not, because you don't want to, or you just have too much going on, or you just can't take a commitment of a fingering weight shawl, stay strong. Don't feel any pressure. Just have the joy of watching other people's projects unfold and then not being stressed to finish anything new. I think that it is easy to get sucked in thinking it'll be worth it, but if you really don't want to commit, 4 skeins of fingering weight yarn is just a lot of knitting. So don't feel pressured if you don't want to do it. Okay, but if you do want to do it, I'm so excited to do it with you. All right, let me look. I have to open my iPad again to see if I have anything else knitting wise to share with you. And I don't think I do, because I am not looking, I'm not letting other patterns turn my head right now. I'm staying focused, and I am 100% focused for the next 2 weeks on finishing the Heirloom Quilt Cardigan. So I have a lot of times I will share patterns that are exciting to me, but other than the Book Club Cardigan, which I just accidentally saw this morning, nothing too much on my radar. So moving on from knitting content, if you are interested in hearing me chit chat a little bit about the books I'm reading, about the shows that have me hooked, and maybe even a little parenting content today, which I feel like we haven't talked a lot about parenting lately, but let's do it. If you're not interested, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. I read this week, I read The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. This is a book that came out long ago when I was in college, as my son would say, like 1830. He thinks it's so funny to talk about how old I am. I don't care. I love being in my 40s. I just get, other than the gray tinsel that I'm getting and the gray eyebrows, I love getting older. But Lovely Bones came out when I was in college, and I read it, as of course I think all of us did back then. It was a huge bestseller, and I liked it. I was definitely entertained, but I don't know how this came back up on my radar. I think it was because sometimes when I'm looking for, because as you know, I'm now obsessed with Libby. She's my best friend, Libby the library app. And the one thing about Libby is, I think this is a great thing, is it forces you to kind of reach wider in what you want to read, because obviously the books that are super hot on everybody's radar right now are going to be really hard to get on Libby. There's just going to be a really long wait. So a lot of times I'm searching through various places on the internet for, recommendations. And I think I was on a website, I don't even remember which one, but it was talking about books, cozy books to read in the winter. And I love a cozy book to read in the winter. Winter is my favorite season. Although it's a tie. I love all the seasons except I don't like really hot, long summers, but I just like the coziness of winter. So this was on that list, and then I just looked to see if the audiobook was available, and it was on Libby, so I downloaded it. Instantly, I was a little reluctant because the author actually narrates it, and she has a really monotone, deadpan voice with no real enunciation. And because the perspective is that of a 14-year-old girl, it just feels like a real mismatch. But I'm really, really glad I didn't let that hinder me, because you guys, I loved reading or listening to this book so much. And I highly recommend that you listen to it again. If you have heard it before or read it before, it's really worth another go, because I loved revisiting it from this perch in my life. When I read it, I was probably 20. And by virtue of being 20, I knew absolutely nothing about anything. I was a complete moron. I just think it's so hard to have any real perspective when you're young. And maybe that was just me. I do not want to generalize. Maybe there are some really wise, evolved, young adults out there with great perspective on life. I was not one of them. I was a self-absorbed twit, to be generous. I look back with great just regret sometimes at just how my youth was wasted on my young self. I wish I could do it again with more life experience, but then it wouldn't be youth, huh? Anyway, just now that I'm married and have a family and am middle-aged and literally have a 14-year-old, this book just absolutely struck my heart. And not only was it wildly entertaining and suspenseful and propulsive. It was thought-provoking and heart-wrenching and hopeful and everything I want out of reading. Inspiring. It was just beautiful. And I literally binged it in 1 week because I could not stop listening to it, even though I have read it before. And you know who does it from the beginning. So I don't know. It's just such masterful writing when, even though you know who done it, you're still absolutely in the story and it feels so suspenseful. It was just lovely. One dog is barking now and one dog is snoring now. We made it through like 45 minutes with quiet. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Anyway, back to the book. Loved it. If you know who Alice Sebold is, she's had some twists and turns in her life that are just so absolutely tragic. If you're interested in her story, you should look into it. She was raped in her 20s, I believe, and then ended up going through a whole trial, and a man went to jail for her rape. And then 20 years later, he was exonerated. And it just was such a heartbreaking twist to me because she wrote a memoir about that whole experience. I remember reading it after The Lovely Bones, and it broke my heart because I just can't imagine the weight on her shoulders of being responsible for putting an innocent man in jail for that long. And it was such a heartbreaking story of this that happened to this author. Like, it's not bad enough to have to live with being raped for your whole life, and then to have this on top of it. Just really, really heart-wrenching. But I really cannot recommend this book enough. I was texting with my college roommate, who was and still is one of my dearest friends. And I was just like, do you remember that book? Do you remember reading that book? And she said, of course I do. Like, it's just so different to revisit something, just like, if you travel and you go to a place when you're young and then you return to that place later, you're so changed and you bring yourself to that place and the experience of that place is so different. Books are the same. Like, when you revisit something, it just brings into such sharp focus how you've grown and evolved and changed. And as big of a twit as I was then, I'm just so grateful to have grown and evolved. And I just like myself so much better now than I like my younger self. But I'm not going to criticize her too much because she didn't know any better. And now she does. So anyway, I am now reading a book recommended by Oprah. If Oprah can say absolutely anything, and I would do it. Okay, I'm not going to try to come up with an absurd scenario because if she said stop knitting, I might not listen. But if she picks a book, I'm from the Oprah generation. Like, I remember in high school coming home from school and watching the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I feel very lucky because she had so much wisdom and was such a forward-thinking woman in those years. And I'm so glad I had her influence. And so if she recommends a book, I'm definitely going to take it to heart. So I am reading The Many Lives of Mama Love by Lara Love. It is a memoir about a mom who struggles with addiction and lands herself in prison when she has, I believe, 4 or 5 children, one of which is very young. And it is really compelling. I really, really like it. It's written very plainly and has just a really raw, present feeling. Like, you feel like you're in there with her. And I have such compassion for her addiction. It's so easy to judge people struggling with heroin addiction or any other opioid addiction, but I can just so relate to wanting to stop doing something, yet not being able to stop doing it. It is so easy to demonize the people that are really struggling with that and not look at ourselves and say, we're all struggling with that to a certain extent. Like, she's snoring, y'all. Sorry. I just feel like I've been struggling with that with food lately. I don't know if it's the stress of a lot of single parenting or because my husband is traveling a lot or because I've just been struggling with parenting. I just feel like all I want to do is eat crappy food that's terrible for me. It's such a struggle and it's so comforting when I'm doing it. And then I find myself just filled with self-loathing later. And this is just such a lifelong struggle for so many of us. And while I'm struggling with this, listening to her struggle with her intense addiction, and you can just feel her love for her child, her little one, yet at the same time, she's continuing to do these horrible things that she knows are going to end very poorly. Anyway, I just love it. It's one of the reasons I love to read is because it allows us to literally live other people's lives and build compassion and empathy and be kinder to each other because of it. So I really love it. I bought it. I had some leftover credits on Libro FM, so I just bought it because it was worth it to me. I'm going to pause real quick before I continue and bring my big dog in because it's going to drive me to distraction. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. It's really hard for me to keep my train of thought when the barking and the snoring and all the sounds are going on. So I just had to bring her in. The show that I am so obsessed with right now is Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV. It was a book that came out a year or two ago by Bonnie Garmis, and it was huge. The book was just enormous. I venture to bet 99% of the book clubs in this country read Lessons in Chemistry at some point. I really liked that book, but I'm not going to lie, I was not one of those people that was just like obsessed with it. I liked it a lot. I found it entertaining and really unique and original, but I was not just swept away by it the way I was like Demon Copperhead or something like Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. But I enjoyed it. But y'all, the show is absolutely excellent. I love it. I think because I wasn't super attached to the book, I'm able to enjoy the series without constantly comparing or wishing things were different. And I think that is a big part of why I'm able to really love the show. I also think Brie Larson is just spot on for the main character. She's so well cast and acts so beautifully in this adaptation. I highly recommend it. I mean, I will tell you, there were times where it was like ugly crying. So be prepared to be very moved. It's a very moving in the TV series. I just love it. We're not done with it yet. We've started this really indulgent ritual where the kids, we let them stay up as late as they want one night a week, and that is Saturday night. That's the night we let them pick their own bedtime, and they're so sweet. They play video games together that one night, and I let them pick their own bedtime. So they usually go to bed really late, and therefore sleep in really late. And so it's just like our secret hack to getting Sunday morning together, just the two of us. And so we've started to watch whatever show we are watching in bed on Sunday morning. And it is the most indulgent feeling thing that makes me feel so young again, because normally, I mean, there were years we didn't even turn on the TV. Now that our kids are older and they kind of do their own thing, some evenings we will watch TV in the evening sometimes, but I am so exhausted and brain dead by the evening. And when I'm tired, I'm not capable of paying attention, even to TV. Like, I cannot absorb anything new. So watching on Sunday morning has been such a gift because I'm able to pay attention and actually follow the story. And then my husband and I get this like little bit of time to share the story, and then we, we'll talk about it, and it's just so lovely. I love it. It's my favorite new ritual that we have, and I'm not going to let it go over my dead body. We are going to continue our Sunday morning ritual. So we've been watching Lessons in Chemistry. Before that, we finished Gilded Age, both seasons, and I am not going to lie, I loved it. It was so good. I am counting the minutes until the Gilded Age season 3 comes out. If you were a Downton Abbey fan, I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but I highly recommend it. It is so funny, and the colors and costumes from that show are so inspiring. If you are a lover of color, as I am, you just will be so inspired by the color palettes of the dresses from that era, and the hats and the headpieces were just so, so striking. So Gilded Age was one that we had been watching, and then when sadly that came to an end, and there were no more new seasons, we watched Lessons in Chemistry. So yeah, he's been traveling a lot, so we haven't been able to watch Lessons in Chemistry since last Sunday, but I can't wait till this weekend. So those are the books and the shows that have me obsessed. As far as parenting, it's been a week, y'all. I tell you what, parenting is not for the faint of heart. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when those cute, tiny little babies came into my life. And now, it is a trip. I am just struggling with my 10-and-a-half-year-old. She is so much like me. She's very strong-willed. She is so sweet and lovely and mature and delightful to spend time with. And in the same breath, I have to say, she is stubborn and challenging and will not give an inch when she doesn't want to. And this week, she hasn't wanted to. And the place we've struggled with her the most, I've talked about this a little bit before, is when something gets challenging, she does not want to do it anymore. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal. This is not like some epic, struggle of like, safety or health or something that she's gotten into that's really dangerous. But to me, it is really a skill that you need for life to be able to stick with something when it's hard. Because even the things you love more than anything, if you really love that thing, you're going to keep doing it until you get really challenged. And if then the challenge, that discomfort, that space of struggle is so hard to tolerate that you quit, you will never do anything. And I understand, I can hear some of you saying, she's just 10-and-a-half, she will grow out of it. But it is something we have seen consistently, and that is spreading. And I just don't want her to keep doing it. I don't want it to become a habit that she gets into, and therefore I'm going to push her to stay the course. And that has just created a lot of struggle. And when I say this girl is stubborn, I don't even remember what it was. It was probably piano. Yeah, I believe it was. I said to her one evening, she was so happy I'd picked her up from school and we were having a great evening. And I said, hey, buddy, you need to make sure you practice piano this evening. It was like a switch went off and she wasn't having any of it. And we just locked horns, and she didn't eat dinner that night. She wouldn't talk to me. She did not want to give me an inch, and she ruined her own evening. I mean, she could have practiced piano for 10 minutes and we could have continued on, but she wasn't having it. And it just became a really rough week where that kind of stuff was playing out. And when I started, I think what really brought the whole thing home to me was I was giving in on piano, and then basketball came up and she was like, oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. It's too hard. And then I was like, okay, look, sister, you can't keep doing this on everything. Or before you know it, you're going to drop out of school and you're going to be like sitting in your room reading books all day, which is kind of her happy space. And I know I'm catastrophizing, but I just know instinctually that I need to hold the line here. And I only share it all to say that it's really hard to find the balance between loving, supporting, nurturing, parenting, and knowing when to stay strong and not give in. That is just really challenging. It's really hard to not give in and simultaneously stay loving and understanding. Dr. Becky Kennedy is like my parenting guru because her style of parenting is just right, like strikes that balance, and she calls it sturdiness. If you don't listen to her podcast, I highly recommend her podcast if you parent children or if you have children in your life that are parenting children. It's just such an incredibly grounding resource where I like to go to just steady myself when I'm struggling and not feel like she's just jerking me along by the leash. Because a lot of times I think we're caught off guard in these parenting moments and it's so hard to find your footing again. And I literally picture myself walking one of my giant dogs around the neighborhood, just being jerked around. That's how I feel sometimes. Like I'm not in control. And no, we're not in control, but we can feel a little bit more steady when we ground ourselves with other people's parenting wisdom. And Dr. Becky Kennedy is an incredible resource for that. She calls it sturdiness. And every time I just hear that word, I feel exactly what I want to be. I want to be grounded. I want my feet steady. I don't want to be jerked around by their emotional reactions. And I don't want to doubt what I know is true for myself and my family. And so I definitely had to dig deep. I talked to, obviously my husband, obviously only if you listen to this podcast. He is such a grounding force for me. He has an innate wisdom with these things that I need to parent well as the parent that's primarily there, boots on the ground. I also am lucky enough, a couple years ago, there was a counselor in my son's middle school that I met with when my son was having some issues with something, and I just loved her. And then she left the counselor position at the middle school and went solely into private practice. And I go to her occasionally as a therapist when I am struggling with something in my own life or in my parenting life. And I find her to just be an incredibly invaluable resource because she just gives me perspective that I don't have as somebody who's not, educated in all these development stages. So, grounding myself in her advice and just talking to friends that have older kids. I'm lucky enough to have friends that I really admire as parents. So, I just have tried really hard this week to remember that I can stay strong and stay loving at the same time. And of course, there's moments where I'm just like, you know what? It's not okay for you to be this rude to me and this dismissive of me. I'm trying really hard to be understanding of you, and I deserve to be treated with respect as well. I have said that exact sentence to my child and then left the room. And to me, that is very different than losing it and screaming, which I have also done this week. So look, there's an Instagram account called Attachment Nerd. She is a child psychologist, I think, or maybe just a psychologist or a therapist. I don't know. Her Instagram channel is excellent. She, posts a lot about parenting, but not only about parenting, also about relationships as an adult. And she said on a post this week something that I found incredibly helpful. She was saying that when our children come to us with challenges, not only are they going through something for the first time, but we are too. We didn't go to school to be parents. Often, even if you have an older child, which I do, he was completely different than her. Like, parenting one child does not necessarily prepare you to parent another. It's like you're doing it anew every time. And to have patience and grace for yourself and kindness, not to beat yourself up when you yell. I yelled several times this week out of frustration, but I also dug deep and read and listened and made sure I was ready the next time to respond with more of that sturdiness rather than that just reactionary parenting. So be good to yourself. You're learning for the first time too, but I think the key is to treat it as something worth trying hard at. For me, parenting is something an arena worth growing in, and it makes me a better person across the board. So that has been my struggle this week. We made it through. I feel like our relationship is as good, if not closer than ever. I feel like she probably feels like I've tried to listen to her and empathize with her, but I'm also not going to just give in to her on her every whim. So stay strong. Stay strong as parents. If you are a grandparent and your child is going through this stuff, just support them with your ears. You don't need to tell them what to do unless they ask you for that advice. I will tell you that as someone going through this as a parent, what I am most grateful for is just someone else saying like, oh, that's really rough. Hang in there. You're doing great. Unless they actively ask you what they think you should do, or you think they should do, just be a supportive voice and ear for them and a shoulder to make sure they know that this is all normal and you don't have to fix it. I think that is how to be supportive if you are in the grandparent position. So yeah, hang in there. It's a rough week always means the next week's going to be better. That's what I try to remind myself. And it's Friday, so we don't have to parent on the weekends. Just kidding. Of course we do, but we do get to kind of take a breath and hopefully do stuff for ourselves so that we fill our buckets. My husband is traveling, so he's not here tonight, and I learned from his month of traveling, that consecutive month of crazy travel, where he never came home for that whole month, that I needed adult time on the weekends. As much as I love my children, I needed to have a glass of wine or two with a friend, period. So I am meeting one of my dearest friends who I adore, and is just, she knits, she loves to read. We have kids that are like around the same age, so we just talk about everything, but we never do it over a glass of wine. And so it's like an extra treat that we get to do it over a glass of wine. We always meet for brunch or lunch, and I'm really excited to meet her this evening. And yeah, that is all I have for you this week. I hope you have something you're really looking forward to this weekend, this Friday night. Keep knitting, keep on knitting, kitten, as our beloved Stephen West says. Get those needles cleared off so you can have some fun new things in March, later in March, some spring knitting to reward yourself with. Okay, I will see you guys next week. Thank you for spending this hour with me. If you are new here, I hope you do subscribe and come back. If you are a regular viewer, I love you. Send me a comment. I love to read your notes, and I will see you again soon. Bye.